This year marks the 40th anniversary of Transformers. From G1 to Earthspark, I'm sure each of us at least grew up with one particular Transformers show or toyline, which Transformers Legacy aims to commemorate, with every part of Transformers history explored, ranging from shows and comics, even ones exclusive to Japanese markets. There is something for everyone in this remarkable toyline. I set myself a simple but important collecting grail when Legacy first announced in 2022, and that was to buy figures that mean something to me in a particular way, whether it's character affinity and nostalgia, or an update to a toy I grew up with, among others. It's a rule that I mostly followed, and while this suddenly ran the risk of getting disappointed with the odd mediocre figure or two, I still think the positives greatly outweigh the negatives, and with Legacy coming to a close earlier next year, I want to showcase the highlights of my Legacy collection. These are my top 5 favorite Transformers Legacy figures. But first, we must establish some ground rules. Number 1, I must own the figure in order to include them on the countdown. 2, figures introduced in Legacy only. This means I sadly won't be including repacks of all the figures, but redecos and retools are fair game. 3, and most important of all, this list details my own personal opinion. This video's purpose is to share my collecting journey with Legacy, so do take my silly personal opinions with a pinch of salt. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin. Dated CG aside, Beast Wars is one of the best Transformers shows in my opinion, and Kingdom granted me the opportunity to somewhat cast collect, from modern updates to even original figures from the 90s. Long after Kingdom, there were still plenty of characters to go, and Hasbro wasted no time giving me fresh updates every other wave. Transmel 2 Megatron finally gave me a worthy Megatron figure I could proudly display without worrying about the figure crumbling to pieces. Tarantulas wasn't bad either, with his creepy alt mode and his spectacular articulation and weapons. He was a truly unnerving villain in Sinzu Wreckers, so naturally I felt inclined to get him. However, none could hold a candle to Inferno. The essence of this lovable pyromaniac is all there. Red and metallic steel blue color scheme, the lanky proportions, and his ever iconic psychotic smile. Inferno also gets massive bonus points for being one of few mainline Transformers with an opening jaw, further bringing out so much personality. His transformation is certainly finicky at first, but the end result is a pretty darn clean and alternate mode, which surprisingly looks somewhat accurate to his CG model, with a more realistic approach adding to the intimidation factor. He is also super dynamic thanks to his multiple joint and robot mode. Though it's annoying his ant legs could get in the way, it's an issue commonly shared with the more insectoid Beast Wars figures, so I can forgive that flaw a bit. The blaster he comes with is sick, and it can be plugged into his tail to recreate his flight mode, and the transparent red used for said blaster creates such a wonderful effect. Inferno is a neat Voyager figure with only very minor flaws to speak of, so why is he only number 5? I know it's a bit unfair, but the character affinity isn't as strong as some others on this list. Don't get me wrong, I love Inferno as much as the next guy, but he isn't my personal favourite Beast Wars character. That honour goes to Scorponok. Don't ask me why, I just have odd tastes. Also, when bringing in other figures from Kingdom, I have to say I prefer Kingdom Dinobot over Legacy Inferno. The only thing he does worse than Inferno is robot mode kibble management. But Inferno is absolutely fire, pun very much intended, and the fact that he's this good, and still at the bottom of my personal list, is a testament to how diverse and high quality Legacy is.
Your elemental power is green.
Legacy offered plenty of subline, each with a particular theme to tie all the figures of these sublines together. Wreck-N' Roll Collection, Velocitron Speedia 500 Collection, Doom's Destruction Collection, but by far maybe the weirdest of these were the Toxitron Collection, introduced in Legacy Evolution, comprising of cancelled G2 redecos. Initially, I had my eyes set on Jazz, mainly out of the fact that orange is one of my favourite colours. But in the end, G2 Mirage came around with its green and pink colour scheme and won my favour. But why Mirage and this one in particular? This is probably one of my most peculiar reasons for buying a Legacy figure, but I used to make these comics directly inspired by the scratch animations of Bullbuster XXL15, And I mean directly in the literal sense. I was just a stupid child, okay? And as you can see here, the main character had a green and pink color scheme. I hope to maybe touch upon this topic for a future video, but point is, that's the reason why I bought G2 Mirage. The good news here is that Mirage is a neat little deluxe on its own. The new color scheme strangely breathes some new life to the classic character, and his vehicle mode benefits of how well this color scheme blends together, and I adore the crocodile insignias too. The transformation is incredible, the way the feet fold out to create the front of a Formula 1 racer, and how the arms form the engine cover. The end result is a 90s as hell vehicle that reminds me of that one Formula 1 chase scene from Charlie's Angels. I hear some people discredit this mold for not having a tab for a missile launcher on the shoulder, but personally I think for this redeco at least, Mirage looks way better with it below his elbow. Nothing beats carrying a rocket blaster under your arm. While you can get plenty of good pose with him, it is somewhat standard for a deluxe class figure, and it's nothing too special to write home about. But if you want a slightly affordable figure with a unique color scheme to boot, I recommend this figure heavily.
Paul, hey big guy, need you up here.
I'm more than just the big guy.
My first entry to Transformers was through the well-acclaimed Transformers Prime, introducing me to Optimus, Megatron, and the rest of the Autobots and Decepticons. I have a lot of fondness for Prime, and it's my personal favourite Transformers show. So, when Legacy was first announced, new figures of RC and Bulkhead were revealed, and they were easily my two most anticipated releases in spite of the G1ifications of their designs, especially Bulkhead, as he was my favourite character in Prime. One of my local toy stores sold them along with repacks of Kingdom Blaster at around February or March, and the moment I saw him, I wasted no time to purchase, with no regrets. First off, Bulkhead surprisingly looks awesome with a G1 style. It feels like an update to the character without removing everything that made the Gentle Giant so memorable. I could just imagine Kevin Michael Richardson's voice of a character just looking at the figure. The accessories further make this modern update work, with his signature barrel mace still being there, which can clip around his hands just like in the show. But I equally also love the other accessories he was given too, like the top cover of his vehicle mode becoming a shield and an Endron-infused shoulder machine gun, which surprisingly doesn't feel intrusive to a figure, and is more so the icing on the robot mode cake. His vehicle mode is completely different to that of the show, but I surprisingly don't mind this change, as the military truck alt mode is super cohesive and badass. It even has one of the best weapon storage of the line, as you can store both this mace and machine gun and cover over with the top. A lot of weapon storage I noticed tend to have a weapon just plonked on top of the alt mode, which I honestly find a little silly and ridiculous. So having the option without clashing with a vehicle mode aesthetic is a dream come true for me. Bulkhead also excels at solidity. His joints are moderately tight and secure, so you can pose this absolute beast without worrying about any of his limbs flopping around. Though I love the Breakdown redeco, it's sad to see some of this solidity go, and it's a bit odd with Breakdown's trademark hammer having to be attached to a barrel mace in order to get the screen accurate configuration. Now, of course, many other Legacy figures came and surpassed Bulkhead in quality since 2022, but he's one of my favourite figures in this toy line because he represents perfectly as to how I view Legacy. Figures that can bring back any nostalgic memories of a certain continuity with a modern flair, and Bulkhead set the standard and paved the way for all the other fantastic figures to come. Wish I could say the same about RC though, damn it.
Well, I'm a space-time traveler, fabric unraveler.
As of recording this video, Vector Prime is the most recent addition to my Legacy collection, so there might be some recency bias, but holy moly, he's made a tremendous first impression. Though Transformers Cybertron for me is the best part of the Unicron trilogy, it's heartwarming to see that there's been a lot of representation for this continuity for fans who grew up with it. Except Energon, but that's not a huge loss. Vector Prime is a very memorable character from the Cybertron portion of the trilogy, and he is definitely one of my favourite characters of that show. Despite all the complaints with QC issues, I still decided to go ahead with a pre-order, even if it was only going to arrive late October in England. And I gotta be real honest here, my only real problems with QC is that sometimes the satellite wings like to detach, and very rarely at that. and also his chest doesn't lock and tap in the best. But when using a waist swivel and or shaking it downwards, it stays in place anyway. So for me personally, it's a non-issue. And that's all the main negatives out of the way. This figure is a gorgeous and sparkling recreation of the show model, which in itself is based on the original toy. The range of colors on display here gives him a regal vibe, which, to be fair, is very fitting for a Prime. The satellite wings and his trademark sword stand out as is cast in this transparent dark blue plastic with a glittery effect added. And so is his Cyber Planet key, which I didn't even notice was one of his accessories until a few weeks after I pre-ordered him. Now that's a bonus. He doesn't come with this mini-con partner safeguard, but I don't find that a huge issue when this figure already looks this premium. Despite their familiar face and vehicle mode, Vector Prime takes some liberties to expand upon his transformation scheme thanks to him being a retool of Legacy G-Axis. For instance, instead of his legs folding upwards to form the underside of his vehicle mode, the waist is swiveled and the front part of the legs are folded forwards to the torso, and the feet tap into the boosters, forming the body of a ship. But to give the illusion of some silhouette of a vehicle, the arms are moved towards the chest via a butterfly joint and extended to fit the tabs underneath the body. What you get overall is a damn near accurate vehicle mode that holds together like a dream, and also faithfully recaptures the original look of the alt mode with a more complex yet easy to learn transformation scheme. And plus, the gold paint really highlights the mechanical clockwork detail. Sadly, the weapon storage for the sword is not great. I think Legacy Windblades definitely had Vector beat with sword integration for the alt mode, but at the very least there is a neat little area to store the Cyber Planet key. All in all, this figure manages to be a very worthy update of a fan favorite character, with the new lengths it takes for its transformation, as well as being a pleasing figure to display. If you're in the mood for a really lavish Voyager class figure, I heavily recommend Vector Prime. Before we get to see my favorite Legacy figure, we have some honorable mentions. Figures that are equally awesome but just didn't make the cut, to figures I'm still eyeing on but haven't been bought at the time of recording. The Armada figure of Starscream faithfully recaptures this fan favorite incarnation, from robot to jet, down to accessories and his face sculpt with his morose noble demon expression. He stands out super well for my other Screamers, though unfortunately, and most people know this, he has a widespread issue where his thighs pop off when swiveling them, and that issue is frustrating when dealing with posing or transforming him, which was enough for him to sadly be disqualified. I personally love United Windblade. She's such a fun figure to mess around with to get into a charismatic pose. Her alt mode is quintessentially Windblade, and the weapon integration is so well done as I alluded to earlier. Her shoulder pauldrons are a bit cumbersome sometimes and her backpack is a bit too inconspicuous, but she's a fun deluxe regardless. Wrecker's Collection Impactor has an eye-pleasing polished shiny deco and has a great militaristic heavy-duty presence on your shelf. Unfortunately, he's only half of the battle. He came with Spindle, who has a QC problem where her hands easily fall off, which sort of kills the fun for her fossilizer gimmick. Thank goodness this was only £27 at TK Maxx. With that retail price, I would have felt a little ripped off. Skullgrin has a very killer design for his robot mode, merging both his inner robot and outer pretender shell successfully, giving him quite the unique vibe, and I love the sword blade guns he comes with. That said, yeah, his alt mode is kinda lazy, and I'm glad that's fixed with a heavy retool. Which, speaking of, Quake being announced as a Legacy figure means so much to me. I had the Titans Return figure since one of my birthdays, and he is one of my favorite Deluxe class figures of all time. So seeing this update really brings a smile to my face, and I hope he does not disappoint. Legacy has had a fair share of Armorizer figures, beginning from Legacy Evolution onwards, and I'm interested in getting Lockdown and Toyline to represent the two main factions. Lockdown in homage to one of my favorite Transformers toy reviewers, and Toyline because, well, no parking means no parking. I don't have any figures from the Velocitron collection, but if I were to only buy one figure from there, it'll definitely be the Queen of the Speed Planet Override. Especially after getting Vector Prime, I really want more slices of the Cybertron pie. Another childhood figure of mine was Titans Return Crash Bash, who was actually named this way because Hasbro didn't have a trademark for his original name, Squeeze Play. So knowing this now, I'd love to get him to see his true form, but he is only exclusive to a pack where only one half the figures there. Legacy introduced the first new combiner molds since 2016's Combiner Wars. I would definitely like to get the Stunticons, in particular G2 Breakdown and Shadow Strip, since they both have very snazzy decos. And speaking of Minosaur,
What a nerd.
my first Commander class figure, my only Commander class figure. I paid around £80 for Motor Master, which I think is a bit too much, especially with how the trailer practically makes up most of the figure's budget, which at first makes it a huge waste of money and plastic. It was an impulse purchase along with Tarantulas, and somehow this figure makes every penny worth it. The core robot looks super imposing, and he is highly articulated, especially when using his sword accessory, which suddenly adds to Motor Master's menacing personality. Although it's his legs doing coincidentally most of the leg work for his transformation, his truck modes continues to make a presence, further bolstered when attached to the trailer. The trailer at first glance seems very useless to the overall experience at first. However, as fate will have it, it too also transforms. The many individual pieces of a trailer can break apart and convert into a battle station with space available for Motor Master to use the turret, and it's the perfect companion piece to a Cybertronian war display. But better yet, they are also the components to Motor Master's Combiner torso mode, with one part being the chest filler and others forming the arms and the legs, and the end result is a spectacle to behold. Minosaur himself. I grew up with the Combiner Wars line, and I love the general concept of combiners, with how the Deluxes forms the arms and the legs, while a certain Voyager forms the torso. Though I take massive issue of how painful it is to get them in a badass pose. This problem is mainly incurred by all the weight of the other components. Since Legacy Motor Master instead has arms and legs formed out of a trailer, Minosaur somehow becomes a joy to pose without the worry of him falling down every 20 seconds. Sure, he looks a bit strange with his hollow legs, but if you're not bothered to get the other Stunticons, one could view this as a super mode for Motor Master. This figure never ceases to amaze me with how clever the overall engineering is to give it that play value. Motor Master may not be my favorite Transformers character I have in my Legacy collection. Heck, G1 Minosaur isn't even my favorite incarnation of the character. That honor goes to the Irish one from Cybertron.
That's right. Things have got to change around here. And if you stand in the way of progress, you're going to go extinct!
You serious? Younger monster tissues. Do you know that?
But, for being a reminder of the toy line I was so fond of growing up when I was younger, as well as just being a well-made masterpiece of a figure itself, how could I not put Legacy Commander Class Minosaur number 1 on my personal list? Sadly, this video is about to come to a close, but what are your guys' favorite Transformers Legacy figures? I'm open to any opinions. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.